name is Pettersen. I'm a technical operation manager in VGTV in Norway. And we use Final Cut exclusively for all of our operations. Before we get to Final Cut, I just wanted to take you to some history about us, so you have some context here. We started up in 1945, shortly after the Second World War. It was as a tabloid newspaper. It was actually started by members of the Norwegian resistance movements during the Second World War. We are based in Oslo, in Norway. We have local offices many places in Norway and also around the world. We are owned by Schibsted Media Group, where we are actively cooperating with them and the other members of Schibsted on technical and also on content. So one of the major milestones in our operations was back in 1995 when we started up what was then called VGNet, which was our web page. It's the first time we had our own news site on the web. It very fast became the biggest news website in Norway. And now we have approximately 2.4 million daily unique visitors. And that's quite impressive for a country with only a little more than 5 million people. So very, very big on the web. And that, of course, leads to, we have 4 major departments, which is news, sports, documentary, and also entertainment. Our history with video started in 1998 when we had our first video on the web. That was back in the days where video wasn't really practical on the web. It was real media, and our first live transmission of direct transmission was in 2000 when we had 400 viewers on one stream. It stopped on 400 because we didn't have more licenses on the real media server back then, so that's why only 400. We actually didn't think we would reach 400, so that's why we didn't have more licenses. And actually it wasn't practical to have more streams. The internet wasn't really made for that amount of streaming back then. In 2005, we introduced the Final Cut and a Exxon into our operations. That was the start of what we have become today. That was when we started working, collaborating on shared storage, and Final Cut made us do things faster and more efficient than ever. And with us, what's really important for us is speed and efficiency, because we are not a big operation. We cannot throw loads of people on projects. We need to be first, and we need to have videos on our webpage very, very fast. So collaboration is very important, and Final Cut with an Exxon helped us back then. That was, of course, very, very early on. So a lot of things has happened since then. In 2007, VGTV was formalized as a company that have dedicated employees for making video for web. In 2013, we actually started using Final Cut Pro. But in 2014, we also started our 24/7 linear channel, which is based on news, sports, and entertainment. Documentary is quite big there as well. In 2016, we started investing in and changing our storage from Exxon and other fiber-based systems to LumaForge storage. At the moment, we have 7 LumaForge systems spread across the departments. They have been very important for us. And also in 2016, we started implementing our own custom MOM system. tell you a little bit more about that. But back to Final Cut Pro X. When Final Cut Pro X was introduced at the NAB in 2011, I believe, 2010? Okay, cool. We were sitting there watching the presentation, and I was actually blown away. I just loved the magnetic timeline, and finally something that is truly non-linear. So I loved it. The day after, I viewed some messages on the forums and stuff, and saw that not everybody was as happy as me. And of course, as we soon discovered, there was a few things missing. So that's probably why we didn't start using Final Cut already back then. But the whole idea of the magnetic timeline was very, very good. I really liked it. And fortunately, Apple had a lot of rapid upgrades to Final Cut. So in 2013, we just went on with it. We implemented it. We had 1 day of training for everybody. Next day, everybody was editing. So it is important to notice that our staff is quite young. We have also a lot of hired people coming in all the time. So for us, to have a editor that's really easy to learn, it's very important. And also, of course, the speed is very important. When it comes to news, the winner of the news race is the one who gets the news first out. So Final Cut Pro X on top of LumaForge storage has helped us a lot there. At the moment we have, I believe, 16 channels of ingest. So we ingest 1080p material to our shared storage. We edit on growing files. So once there's a developing story, if we're not live with it, we can always bring clips out on our website very, very fast. And we have to make sure that it also plays on our linear channel. So that's also, of course, been a little bit of a challenge. You have a progressive versus interlace and so on. Our solution is that everything we do is progressive. We have, for every source we get from others, we have a whole stack of Teranexes that are actually deinterlacing everything. So our house format is always 1080 progressive. So that has been a challenge. It's been quite expensive, but you cannot put interlace on the internet, and if you have only interlace sources, if you don't deinterlace properly, it will not look perfect, and the encoding is always going to be a bit suffering from interlace artifacts. So we shoot, all our cameras are progressive.
Is the output for you always progressive?
Yeah. So if we play the playout, of course, the distribution and everything for normal broadcast is always interlaced. So for us, it's actually PSF. So we play out progressive, but it ends up as PSF. Yeah. When it comes to Final Cut again, the importance of a program that are fast, but also you can do everything in that program. You have your management of the files. You have almost everything you need. You can finish your whole project there. We use Motion for graphics, so we have templates in Final Cut with for all our departments. They just put them in the timeline, and it's there. And I'll show you a little bit about our workflow shortly, but we have, for training, as I told you, we have had a one-day course where everybody got an introduction to Final Cut, and we really didn't have any issues after that. People liked it, so that was really good. Now we have a few power users, so whenever there's new stuff, they are training them. And that's very important, so that you, because there's limitations of how many Final Cut Pro editors there is out there. So we figure that it's important to have in-house training also. A little bit about our workflow, because what we very much do is that, especially for sports, there we have a collaboration with Discovery. So every day we produce up to 5 sports news that runs on the Euro channel for Discovery. And those news, and also I think it's 3 weekly episodics we produce for them. They run all on Eurosport, and they also run on our channel and also on the web. So from time to time we need to have different versions of the same clip. So we use the role system in Final Cut to do that. So whenever you have a edit, you put in your graphics and your sound and everything, you assign roles to your different clips and graphics. So that when you go to the export, we can actually make separate files in one go. I get to that, but our next step after assigning roles is that we use TC Electronics LM2 for loudness control, so that all the clips have approximately the same level. We are standardizing on, most of our clips end up on the web. So that's minus 16 dB LUFS, which is the EBU recommendation for web, because your small iPhone or your little laptop have small speakers. Minus 23 is just not loud enough. So minus 16 is what we standardize on there. And when we do the export, for example, for Discovery, we have an automated system that makes minus 23 dB for that. That's just handled in our MOM system, so the user won't see it. But minus 16 is like where approximately you should be for web. And then once we've done we of course use a broadcast limiter and for fixing things that are outside of the range. Once you have your edit done and your loudness and everything, you put in metadata in Final Cut in the export window. Those metadata, like the title, description, creator, tags, and everything, we bring along as extended attributes. They are in the file, so you don't need a XML to do that. We just read the metadata directly from the file. So once you put it in a watch folder for our MOM system, it reads the file and the metadata and collects them and make them searchable and so on. So that's a very, very efficient and simple workflow. And simplicity is the key word for us here. Next thing is that once you have your edit done, you have all your graphics, sound and everything in place. We also export in the same go as for example, we have our master file with graphics. We have another master file in another format for Discovery with maybe another set of graphics. We also make what we call a clean version. That's a version without any of the graphics on top. If there's, for example, speak on it, then it's always the sound channels are separated, so you always have the possibility to take away stuff like speak that you might need to change. So that file is always archived with the master files in the MOM system. So we've found that this is the easiest and way to reuse clips. Once we have them in the MOM system, if you are searching for a news story from back whenever, once you have found it, you can actually download the clean version. You can take away the speak that you don't need if there's some other soundtracks, and you don't have the graphics on top because they might have changed and everything. So you have that as well as the master files. So once you've done that, there's just a bundled export in Final Cut, so there's just one setting with all the 3 formats you export. And then you put that you export to a watch folder, and it's suddenly inside the MAM system with all the metadata in place. It reads all the extended attributes, and it also reads all the info about the video formats and the file itself. And you can search up and you can find it, you can watch proxies, and you can deliver it to all sorts of destinations that we have. For example, you can send it to the storage you're on. If you're on a share station in the sports department, you just say send to share station, and it's on that share station. So very efficient. You can put it in our live system, our play out system, and publish it to web directly from our MAM system. We also have some we have some players actually built into the MAM system, so you can drop files that our sports playout, for example, which is a sports news looping. Just drag a file over there and it starts looping. So simplicity. That is my presentation about how we are using Final Cut, and I think for us, the biggest reason for switching to Final Cut Pro X was the simplicity. And then we discovered the speed, which nobody is even close to, if you ask me. In our test, it's the export. Very often, if you're out in the field editing on a MacBook Pro, you need to export a H.274 for fast uploads and stuff. That's things that can take ages in other systems. It's very, very fast in Final Cut Pro X because of the GPU acceleration and so on. So very, very efficient. So we very much like it because of that, and the fact that we can actually have new staff. We can have journalists sit down with them for a few hours, and they are actually editing. So, and that's what editing is actually all about. It's about telling a story, not fiddling with technical issues. So we like it. Thank you very much.